This week on DRC, we discuss one of your submitted decks. We also talk a little bit about the current state of the meta. And lastly, Bradford Lee leads a discussion on what cards maybe could we unnerf. All that and more. DRC starts right now.
You're listening to the Death Rattle Crew, a Hearthstone podcast.
DRC, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Death Rattle Crew, a Hearthstone podcast. You're listening to episode 73. I am one of your hosts, Mike Tack2Her, joined by Mr. Bradford Lee.
What's up, Mike? How's it going?
Fantastic. How you doing?
Fantastic.
Nice. Don't forget, you can follow us at www.deathrattlecrew.com. Find us at Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, all those places. Just search Death Rattle Crew. Bradford Lee, where can people find you?
Twitch.tv/Bradford Lee.
Brad.
Yeah.
What's going on? What's the deal?
I thought you had like some serious moment.
I am. It's very
Mike,
serious.
I got to tell you something.
All right, go ahead. Shoot.
There's been people walking around with their heads down all week.
Yeah?
Playing with their phones. I thought you were going to get all serious with me. Have you played any Pokemon Go?
I haven't, but just about everyone at work is playing right now.
Mm-hmm. Totally. I can imagine for sure. I mean, can I be bold enough to claim that this may be a paradigm shift
Be bold.
in social communication?
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's shifting the way that we think socially, because it's like the first successful virtual reality augmentation program.
Yeah.
Like commercially
I
successful.
can see that.
And so it's a social game. It's a social VR system program. You know, like obviously we play it on our phones, but like think about it 5-10 years from now. Like it's been already successful before we have gotten to that point where, like, say people are wearing Google Glass or something,
right?
You know, isn't that crazy? So that's what's been up with me. I've been thinking about Pokemon Go from think about it conceptually, like it's changed the way that people are going to think, like just the same way that like a phone or like an iPhone or whatever changed the way that people communicate and function socially.
Yeah.
In our society, which is pretty crazy that like a video game can do that. Like just a video game can do that, because now like there's a market for selling VR sets. Like we were talking about that like a week or 2 weeks ago, maybe.
Yeah.
You were talking about which was the one that you got?
Vive. That's what I had for a while.
Okay. Yeah, and then you returned that one because it wasn't. What was I don't even remember the reasoning. What was the whole story behind that again?
Yeah, it just wasn't great. It wasn't the experience I expected it to be. And I had used an Oculus Rift before. Like I had a development kit too, and like even that version, I'm like, oh yeah, I mean it's nice, but here are the pitfalls, and my biggest pitfall they didn't fix. So that's why I didn't like it. Long story short.
What was the big pitfall with it right now?
The pixelation, the screen door effect is what they call it, because it zooms in on the screen. It's just not high resolution enough, but I mean, you know, it takes a beefy graphics card, and we're just now at the point where people are saying, oh, the graphics cards you get now are perfect for what is out right now is perfect. So,
right.
Yeah.
It's interesting because like that means the program side of it is caught up. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
If Nintendo is creating a commercially successful program like this, then that means the software is there now. Like we're able to do that functionally. Like we understand it from like, you know, like the physics engines that are being built in to make it look like truly augmented reality. And like the little bits and pieces from there. I mean, obviously, like Pokemon Go is not perfect. It's, you know, it's still just a bunch of digitally animated creatures popping up behind something, you know. But like, it's still like interesting that the code is there, and then the rest of it still needs to like get a couple years from now. But like, I think that changes the way that people are going to think here in the near future. It's just, I think it's really impressive. Like, and that's a bold claim. That's a very bold claim right off the bat. I mean, this game's been out for what, like a week and a half now.
Yeah.
But I was talking to a guy today, and they were saying that there are more people on Pokemon Go than on Twitter.
Really?
That's what he was saying. Now, I didn't honestly,
Wow.
like, I didn't look up the facts on that, but that's what he was saying, and I was like, oh wow, that's really interesting. Like, I'm sure And he was talking about how much he plays it and stuff too. So
Wow. I didn't realize there was that many people. Like, I knew it was a bunch, but I didn't expect it to be that many. At least right away, anyway. That's impressive.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that's what's been up with me. But before that, so I gotta tell you a story about what I just did. I went on a trip out into the wilderness, basically.
Yeah.
And I have a story from this week, actually.
Okay.
Okay. So we were fishing at one point, and I casted a lure out with the fishing rod, and it landed on this tree side, right? And it got stuck, and I was like, we're caught in the tree. The lure is caught in the tree, basically. So I'm like yanking on it, and nothing's happening. And so the guy with me, we're in a canoe. He's like, well, let me get my paddle out. So I get this paddle out, and we're like getting closer to the shoreline at this point. And we get really pretty close at this point. I'm giving it a couple more yanks, and finally it pops loose. And as it pops loose, it like skips on the water and catches a fish.
Oh, no kidding.
It was awesome. The fish must have seen it in the air, but like it didn't quite catch his mouth or anything. It like caught the edge of him, and like the lure stuck in him, and then he just was like caught. And so I was like, what? Like he was in his mouth, but it wasn't like fully in his mouth. Like he must have jumped up towards it, but like because it just splashed and hit the water. But like it was more because that splashing off the water kind of thing struck him to like kick himself up to see what it was, and less because he actually was biting on it. But yeah, so it was the sweetest thing. It was a total bank shot into a fish's mouth. Caught him. It was awesome. So that was the highlight of my week. It was pretty darn cool, and I felt like I had to share it.
That's funny.
But I haven't been playing much Hearthstone because of the trip, and that's what's been up with me. What's up with you, Mike?
Nice. And just work. Get people going nutso over the Pokemon Goes.
Mm-hmm.
All the Pokemans.
All the Pokemans.
Man, that's been about it. I've been play testing a fun deck that we're going to talk about this week that a listener sent in. So,
oh, cool.
So we're going to talk about that. That's been basically it as far as Hearthstone goes. We kind of talked about it before we got on the air. Where the meta is kind of like, it's solved. It's there. It's done. So
yeah, it's defined at this point.
You've been messing with a lot of things.
Yeah, I've just been playing called weird decks.
So
now.
What have you been doing? What's the new thing?
What's the thing I'm messing with?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm messing with Rogue right now. Okay, so yesterday I got back from my trip yesterday and started streaming. And we were talking about Silithid Swarm. Oh, and I guess we should actually backtrack for a second. There's some news in Hearthstone, and so we should probably do this first.
Okay.
There was a patch that came out. What was it, yesterday? Did it come out yesterday or the day before? Maybe it came out the day before. But anyway, the new patch has come out in Hearthstone, and a couple changes have come into place. Now, mainly they're cosmetic in nature, so like they're the user interface getting some sort of update or energy put into it in some way, shape, or form, or like golden cards are getting a better animation.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like a graphical update to just kind of get things smoothed out and polished for the most part. You'll notice there are a couple things that perhaps aren't as desirable as they used to be. There, I think one of the big gripes was if you look at a friend who is in Legend, their number is really small now. Like it's just really small. And I think that's a concession more to the Chinese server where, at the end of the season, they've got a number that breaks 10,000 as amount of people that are in Legend. So the typeface font was too big to fit all that. But when the American server, I think they get to like 6 to 9,000 or so players that reach a Legend by the end of the season. Somewhere in that range, I don't know, but they don't break that 10,000 barrier. So I think that's maybe why they wanted it smaller. That's the only like design-wise, that's the only thing that makes sense to me. But that's a little bit smaller. So that's one of the things. But there's some other little things here and there. Like Innervate has a much different artwork now. It's like this golden-looking kind of thing, so it looks really nice. Kind of. I feel like it's almost like a tell that Innervate's not the kind of card they want to nerf. They kind of use it as an identification of what they think Druid is as a class. Like it's what the designers believe is the thing that defines Druid as a class, is that card Innervate. And so I don't see that card going away anytime soon. And the new look of it is pretty beautiful. So yeah, that further like confirms that suspicion that Innervate will not be nerfed ever and will be the identity of the Druid class. So that's something that came out in this new patch. And what you can learn from that. And then also, I think like the only real gameplay change that kind of came out, there's some other little things. So when you hop on your first time, you'll notice them. There's also a new cosmetic character for Shaman.
Yes.
It's a Murloc or the character. And if you click on your friends list, there's now a little tiny recruit a friend thing at the bottom right side of it. You can try and recruit your friend. If one of your friends wants to play Hearthstone, they can come in, they can join, and they can be interested in it at that point. And once they reach level 20 with their first their first account, it'll give you it'll unlock the Murloc Shaman character for the Shaman class. So it's kind of cool. And then the Murloc Shaman character looks really, really cool.
Yeah.
It's one of the better ones in my. It's really well designed, and what's really interesting about it is I played against an opponent who had it, who wasn't a golden shaman, right? His hero power was not golden, but the Murloc character's artwork is golden. So you get a golden character out of it, even if you're not even reached level 500 with your shaman yet. So that's kind of cool. Something that I don't think they really did with the other ones, if I remember. Maybe they did. I don't think they did.
They did, or they're the portraits that you can buy are animated. I think they're golden. Am I wrong, chat? Am I wrong? I honestly
don't know.
I know they're animated.
It's not something that I interact with personally. Like, it's not for me. It would appear that they are. I'm seeing. Well, I don't know. We'll see.
Okay.
Nonetheless, that is the way that you get it for the Murloc. So nonetheless, you do get it that way, which is kind of cool. But the one thing I think that's probably the most important factor from a gameplay perspective, and the thing that I kind of messed around with a little bit, is Silithed Swarmer is now a beast. If you guys don't remember what Silithed Swarmer is, don't worry. Not many people remember what it is. But it's one of those cards that like is inherently powerful enough to be playable. It just has a downside.
Right. And
so Silithed Swarmer is a 3-mana 3/5. It's now a beast. So a 3-mana 3/5, that alone is great, and it's now a beast. So it has synergy with something specifically, potentially. And it says, Silithed Swarmer says, can only attack if your hero attacked this turn. So that kind of limits the classes that will want it. So things like Rogue would be interested in it because Rogue can attack more often each turn. But obviously the beast synergy with Rogue doesn't work out very well because there isn't much there. There isn't anything that like beast synergies in Rogue. So the card gets even like kind of more refined on the amount of classes that can really utilize it. So it needs to be, if it's already not seeing play before it was a beast and it were to potentially see play now, it's going to need to be in a class that has synergies with beasts and also can utilize its hero to attack on a regular. And Hunter can do that to some extent because they have weapons, but they can't really regularly have a weapon up and have Silithed Swarmer out. That's a very inconsistent piece there. So it doesn't really fit there either. So what I've been doing is I've been messing around with Silithed Swarmer to get back to the initial question in Druid, because Druid has some beast synergies, and there's already a perfect shell for that kind of a card to fit into potentially. That's the aggro Druid kind of shell. And I think it maybe changes the dynamics of the deck because, again, Silithed Swarmer is a 3-mana 3/5, but it can only attack if you've used your hero power that turn, basically, as the Druid class. So in theory, it's a 3-mana 3/5 that you don't really want to play until like turn 5, or if you have an Innervate, you can get some extra value out of your Innervate in the mid game with an aggro type deck. Does that make sense? Because like sometimes you'll get to like turn 5 and you're like, I got to play this Azure Drake, but you're like, well, we'll play the Azure Drake, and you draw an Innervate, and you're like, oh, sweet, now my 3/5 can attack. So there is some upside potential with that class because you get to kind of like cheat on mana a bit.
Right.
But yeah, it's kind of one of those cards that I've been messing around with, and I was playing last night. I played a little bit of that Druid deck, but the other deck that I've been messing around with, because we were talking about that deck we were talking about that deck and other decks while we were playing last night, was trying to mess around with Beneath the Grounds. And so you can tell I'm really picking the bottom of the bucket now when it comes to this format. It's kind of well defined, as we talked about. I honestly, can you think of a new deck recently, Mike? I haven't been in town, but it doesn't look like there's anything new.
No. It's just refinements of existing decks. I guess that's the only changes I've seen.
Yeah, and there really isn't that much of a refinement though. Like,
you're right.
It's not like it's like, let's take this one card out because we found that 65.5% of games are going to be won if we play this card versus playing this card where only 64.5% of wins are going to be happening.
And it's a tech swap where everyone's playing Rogue right now. Well, here comes Harrison Jones.
Yeah.
You know,
it's like the last 2 hours there's been 17% higher percentage of Rogue. Let's switch to playing this card or something.
Right.
You know.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where we're at. I did the one thing that was like an innovation, I guess you'd say, was in the Dragon Warrior deck, where people were playing Deathwing now in it.
Yeah, I have. Excuse me. Yeah, I have noticed that.
Yeah, and I think it just offers more consistency with your dragon synergy cards, and then also gives you the access to having a nice finisher that, sometimes that Dragon Warrior deck come up a little bit short, and it's just like, all right, Deathwing, let's see if this is good enough.
Yeah,
might win you a couple games.
It's kind of like the Yogg-Saron play. I'm behind. You play Yogg-Saron. See what happens. Roll a dice.
Well, and it's a great answer to like things like Cthulhu, because Dragon Warrior doesn't have a clean answer to that normally. Like they can go execute or something. But at that point, they've already got to be so far ahead that they have the extra like card that does 1 damage to it, executes, and has another threat in hand. Like that's kind of hard for the dragon deck to do because it kind of runs on bare minimum resources and is trying to keep it maintaining pressure and utilize all of its resources by the time it's over. It's a tempo oriented deck. It's more tempo warrior. The Dragon Warrior deck is more of a tempo warrior deck, and like the mid range warrior deck is the old what they used to all call tempo warrior, or what they call tempo warrior. So. But Dragon Warrior kind of does that idea where it's like kind of like unleash all of your resources. So Deathwing is a pretty reasonable and natural fit inside of it. So yeah. Something to try out if you got the card and you've got the Dragon Warrior.
Oh yeah, definitely. I actually have been playing that deck a lot. I've been playing the deck that we're gonna talk about later, but a lot of Dragon Warrior and Cthulhu Warrior. I played a lot of Warrior this week.
I mean, it's a good class.
Yeah,
it's a really good class.
Scarily,
turns out it's might be the best class right now.
Yeah. And because I'm not going to forget, this will be the first episode we've done this month. The giveaway. So this month, I got a $20 Battle.net gift card, and it's going to go to Stark, STARKE on Twitter, Stark_HS. So Stark, congratulations! I'll be getting you that code soon. And just like you, all of you playing at home, all you have to do is follow us on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and you get an entry for that month. And going forward is moving forward for every month therein, you're entered, you're eligible. And then if you write into us at mail@deathrattlecrew.com with a question, a deck submission, whatever it might be. Anyway, all right. So we got a lot to talk about. We're going to take a break real quick. We'll be right back with Meta Anatomy. DRC would like to thank Brainiacs for their support of this podcast. If you have a tech idea for improving your business's workflow, Brainiacs can provide a turnkey solution to specifically fit your needs. You can contact them at www.brainiux.com. And welcome back. This is Meta Anatomy, your one weekly stop for everything meta in Hearthstone. I'm Tac2, joined by Bradford Lee. Bradford Lee, what is meta right now? I think everyone knows what the meta is. What is meta? What is meta in Hearthstone?
Meta is defined at this point, right? So it's a defined meta. And if it's a defined meta, then doesn't that mean Yogg-Saron's good? Because it's been proven.
You're not wrong, but you're wrong. Does that make sense?
You're wrong.
You're not technically wrong, but you're wrong.
So
I just hate that card. I hate that card.
I do too, and that's why I think it's a perfect conversational piece for this right now.
Yeah.
Because I think I might be in the camp now that says if you can't beat them, join them. Because it's like, what else are you gonna do? You got to play Yogg now sometimes. Now it doesn't mean that like every deck wants a Yogg, but like I've been messing around with weird decks, and like right now I'm messing around with a Beneath the Grounds Rogues deck, and I'm gonna play it on stream tomorrow or tonight. Because somebody else, I Play Jazz actually is his name in Twitch, was talking about it, and he's like, "Oh, Beneath the Ground," so we're gonna mess around with it tonight.
Nice.
So I've been messing around with it, and I played with it, and it's relatively good. And then I was like, man, we were talking about putting Yogg in it last night, but I was like, this deck is actually relatively good, and like without Yogg, it would run like a one of like Leroy or something, maybe like some kind of finisher kind of thing instead of Yogg.
Yeah.
But instead, it just runs Yogg. It's like, all right, we're playing Yogg instead. And it's just like, there's no other finisher that's better now.
Right.
So it's okay. I wouldn't say like the deck is like tier 1. It's like tier 3.5. You know what I mean? Like, like this deck is not the best deck in the world, but it's not bad is the thing. And like it has, but like if I want to mess around with these type of decks, the correct play is to play Yogg-Saron. So I was like building it, and I was like, man, this deck would be so much cooler if Yogg-Saron didn't exist, because my Yogg-Saron deck gets beaten by the other Yogg-Saron decks because their Yogg-Sarons are meant to be played on like turn 15 because they just like are a flurry of spells and like a Flame Waker. Mine's like, here's a bunch of stuff. And then I also have, like this preparation. I have a Shadow Step if it gets really bonkers, like just like some more fun and like ridiculous cool cards, and Journey from Below's. But the deck's like a turn slower, so it's always still going to be like 3.5 tier. But it's like super fun to play. I mean, we were watching me, or we were playing a game of it before we went live, right?
Yeah.
Did you watch that? Me play that?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it looked pretty cool for the most part, I think.
Yeah.
What do you think?
We talked about this like weeks and weeks and weeks ago, and I remember there was a lot of argument online, like, I don't know, the first week of first week of July.
If the card was even like good, right? July. In the first week of July.
Either first week of July or the end of June. And there was like Reddit, everything was going crazy. And you had two camps. One that said, oh, the card is proving why Hearthstone, it's, well, I'm going to use these words.
It glorifies
the RNG aspects.
Those people.
Which,
it glorifies RNG.
And what I mean by that, and what I think that camp means by that, is cards like Piloted Shredder, where that RNG, it's a card game. You're gonna have RNG. You have no idea what cards you're drawing, but that card, it's so good. Play it, and the RNG can be in your favor. Sometimes it'll be bad, whereas and you autoplay it because it's so good.
So that's like non-inherent design versus inherent design.
Right.
Because like inherent design is like you draw the card and that RNG is inherently in the design of the game.
Right.
But like non-inherent design is like, it's like a designer's choice to put that in, right?
And
so they chose to put those in, but I'm trying to grasp like why those are the peak level of competitive cards in both of these metas. Like maybe I mean, I'm not saying Yogg is the peak level. Piloted Shredder was a peak level design.
4-drop.
It was
you don't play Yeti, you play Piloted Shredder.
Right. It was designed to be a peak level kind of card, like top notch tier 1 design, right? So there's like obviously that appeals to like some funny moments from like a fanboy point standpoint. We've talked about this before, but like you were saying though, like those are the two differences there. But sorry to interject.
Well,
there.
I mean, so you had both camps, and then they were saying, this is why the game's hard. It's difficult to take this game serious at a super competitive level, especially on tournament streams and things like that, because someone who might be the better player and thought through the tournament better as far as their deck choices can lose strictly based on RNG, and not RNG of, I just didn't get the right cards, but it was, I'm kicking your ass, and then you drop a Yogg-Saron and wipe my board, everything's gone, and all of a sudden I have I'm making this up, but I've got a 30-30 Yogg-Saron with Wind Fury.
Sure,
and
I mean, like, it's not going to be that disastrous. But...
No, but it's when that happens, it might as well be that, because it's like, oh my God, I made all the right plays all game wrong, and you're still going to beat me because of reasons. Yeah. And so it was July. I actually, and that's when I read this article in Kotaku. The headline was, Hearthstone's most ridiculous card reignites debate over randomization. And again,
this total clickbait.
No, it is. But to us, it is. Because it's been brought back up again. You had Pilot Shredder, now you have Yogg-Saron again. It just, the card doesn't feel good. I don't like it. It's fun anywhere but I'm going to use the word professional level. I just don't like it on a professional level. That's my problem with it. Like the Tavern Brawls. It's a Tavern Brawl card. This week's Tavern Brawl is you get a random deck and a Yogg-Saron, and when you play a card, you get a spell randomly cast when you played it. Like, perfect. Yes, please, by all means. That card's perfect for Tavern Brawl. But I just, in my opinion, I'm not a developer. I don't know. But I don't like it in the professional setting. That's just me.
I think it would be really neat as like a wild type deck. Like if there was like later down the road, like once it's already printed, I think it's going to be fantastic and wild. Because the thing is that it offers a level of decks that aren't previously in wild, right? It's a whole new archetype that can be revolved around Yogg. The downside to that though is that spell heavy base decks, for the most part in wild, are going to eventually be able to tune themselves to be exactly what they want to be, because eventually we'll have a larger spell count. There'll be more cards. And as there's more cards and more good cards printed, the refinement of wild decks will get more and more and more streamlined, and then eventually you'll have these kind of wild decks that are like perfectly refined. You know, they're an archetype that has 27 core cards, kind of like the old combo druid decks.
Yeah.
Of past. There's 27 core cards. You have 3 slots to adjust. You know, and when you ventured off from that, almost 99% of the time it was incorrect, right? To do that from like a core design perspective of the deck, because the deck has to use all these pieces to fit together in order to make it consistent, resilient, and be able to recognize both roles, the aggressive role or the defensive role. Like be in this position where it can make choices based on lineups and matchups. But that's a 27 card piece right there. Like, boom, it's one archetype. And like eventually we'll get to this point where, and in my opinion, when you have these spell-based archetypes, and we're not talking about one specific archetype like druid, like combo druid, right? So combo druid is one archetype within one deck within a much larger concept of like the hero, or within like, let me think of another one, like patron warrior, right? Patron warrior is a very key concept. It has 20, 27, some odd, somewhere in that range, cards that are always going to be in that deck, but it's not the only warrior deck, right? There's so many other things that make up what warrior does. So the problem there is that that's one deck, but when you think about a spell heavy deck, there's like spell heavy Violet Teacher decks, right? And now it's like spell heavy Violet Teacher decks are going to have Violet Teacher and Yogg-Saron. That's your starting piece. So those are the kind of decks that like Yogg-Saron is not just in one deck. It's going to be in like 18 different styles of decks over time. Does that make sense? Like it's going to be an auto include because it's just incredibly powerful to the point of that. But in Wild, I think that's okay because with these more refined decks, everyone's going to have powerful effects, but they're not all going to be charge or something. You know, they're not all going to be face hunter. That's the ultimate goal, I think, with what I currently envision with Wild, where I think it's currently at. I don't think people will go to play Wild to play face hunter. You know, like people don't play Wild because they're a new player in the game anyways.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So like a new player isn't going to go out of their way to play Wild anyways. So like these are people who have most of their decks put together and are there to because they're like, yeah, I could play Face Hunter. Like, sure, there might be a time when Face Hunter is the best deck in the meta, but that doesn't mean that there's going to be 65% of people playing Face Hunter all of a sudden, or 65, or like when Dragon Warrior gets big, everybody switches to Dragon Warrior, and your numbers of the number of Dragon Warrior you see is so big. That's not going to happen as much with it in Wild as compared in Standard.
Right.
So, yeah.
No, I agree.
I don't know. That's where it fits, but I don't think it's good for Standard for the 2 years that it's going to be in Standard. It's kind of unfortunate that the rotation time frame is a long
time for this card.
Yes.
That's a long time. I don't know.
Hashtag make 2018 better.
Yeah, it's not the end of the world. It's kind of, I don't know. I just don't like it. I don't like the card.
Yeah, I'm not a big proponent of it. It's funny too because I listen to a number of other podcasts, and I'm not going to name them because we're very negative about the card, and so I don't want them to feel as if that we're putting them in like in one side or the other. But they were all proponents for the card, and it was interesting to hear that conversation. But it'd be cool to. I we're both on the same side of the fence, which I hear the conversation from this side. I hear the conversation from the other side of the fence, but there's no conversation between the fence right now that I've been listening to. Yeah. Where it seems like there's an interesting dialogue of why one would want it over the other. And I understand why one would want it over the other, but I feel like it's a really interesting debate to discuss its merit in the game, because it's the kind of thing that we're not talking about Yogg at this point anymore. We're talking about what does Yogg do to the game, and how does it shape the game, and how does it change the design of the game.
It's a fun card. I will not deny that. Oh, it is really fun to play the card. Again, like I said, at competitive mode, that's the only problem I have with the card. You know, I want to keep it in anywhere else other than, I don't know, maybe we've talked about this before too. Just like Magic has, ban lists for certain formats. If that was ever a thing, okay, fine, make all the crazy cards you want like that, and just take it out of that. That
would be very interesting.
I'd be happy.
Actually, interesting way to approach it.
Don't delete the card from the game, but I don't know.
What if there was like a specialty set with every new set coming out? Or no, let's go with solo adventures. With every solo adventure that comes out, there's a specialty set, right? It's an extra 5 cards. It's the bonus expansion piece of the solo adventure. Like you do the 5 solo adventures that gets you your standard cards, and then there's the bonus one. There's like the this section is the super hard one. Like it's going to take you, like normal mode is going to be really hard and heroic mode is going to be almost impossible, right? Though like it's going to be like the hardest boss possible, but they give you wild cards or something, you know, because like those are the established players anyways. That's what those established players want anyways. And it's not like you add much to the game. You add one extra little adventure. I mean, obviously that's a lot to say from my perspective, actually, because, you know, like it takes a lot of people to do all the artwork, do all the planning for that. So it's a lot more to add. But if from a card design perspective, if you're adding 6 cards to the end of the solo adventure that are only for wild, be really interesting way to promote it for people who are, and now I know it's not the majority, but people who are interested in potentially playing wild, and it's a good way to promote the format that really hasn't seen a lot of growth, really. And I don't know, it's just something to think about.
Yeah. And again, I'm not harping on people who like the card. That is not, and I hope that doesn't come across that at all. It's
no, we just have a very strong opinion that we don't think it's good for the game. And I do, at least. I don't know about you.
No. In the podcast, we really just talk about standard and I guess a higher level, higher tier play. That's not saying I'm like the best player in the planet. That's not what I'm saying. But that's what I enjoy more than just the, hey, let's go. You know, I do like, especially with my siblings, both my brothers will go in and just say, all right, go pick a champion or a hero and just randomize your deck and let's go play. Just don't even look at it. Just hit random, look away, wait till it's done. Okay, let's go. Have no idea. I love doing that. That's so much fun. Yeah, I feel like we're beating a dead horse here. So everyone knows.
I think what's really interesting though, that I think that idea of a solo adventure that has some focus on wild or something, or even a set that has some focus with wild specific, it would be good. Or like you were saying, like a banned and restricted list. So like, you can't play this card in standard when it comes out in some set or something. Yeah. Now I think that's a good way to approach certain cards like that.
I know the argument. I can hear people screaming at their Karsteras right now. Well, that's what the difference between wild and standard is, and it's like, yeah, I know. And it does, it feels bad. Like I feel bad saying, hey, this card just came out, we shouldn't be playing it. Like it feels bad.
I understand that. I understand that. Yeah, because like it's I think it's safe to keep in standard for a while, even if it's like, okay, let's say it was a broken card. It's not, Bill. Let's say it was. I mean, it is a broken card in my opinion. It's broken because of its level of complexity. Not. Yeah. It's just throw it in a spell-based deck and call it good generally. Yeah. And I mean, that's not always true. I mean, it does have there is some skill to it to some extent, but it's like once you understand that going over the threshold of 8 spells cast in a game is when the Yogg-Saron is generally going to do something ridiculous. Yeah. And not be overbearingly ridiculous. That's kind of like the sweet spot in my opinion. 8 to 10 spells is when I start to consider playing it. But like that, so there is some strategy to be put into that, but then everything after that is just random. Yeah. Like, that's unfortunate.
If you're behind, it is the best card in the game. That I think
it can be.
That's my and that's what I mean. Like if you're losing and it hurts you more, who cares? You're going to lose anyway. If you're losing and it wins you the game, it's amazing. Like one card won you the game. That is my only problem with it. And maybe that's what maybe it's too big of a threat. You know, maybe if it was something like Piloter Shredder, where it's okay, it's a decent body for 4 mana, and you're going to get a 2-drop out of it. 2-drop can be good, 2-drop can be okay, and 2-drop can hurt you. But that's all random. But it's not. You know, you're not going to win the game after going 15 turns or whatever because of a Piloter Shredder necessarily.
I think it's the number of I think of like a bell curve, right? And then, like the deviations, like statistics wise, they're like 3 bounds outside the standard deviation is where like unnormal events are happening, you know, like the phenomenons and stuff. Like, this is not commonly occurring enough to the point where it should be enraging, I guess, when it's outside of 3 bounds outside the standard deviation, or whatever 3 bounds is within this bell curve. And I don't know what it is. If it's like actually more than I don't know what the percentile is, the 2-point-something% amount of times that happens, or whatever the percent is of 3 bounds outside of standard deviation. Right? If it's within that other amount of time, like less than 98% or whatever the number is exactly, I don't know. I can't remember. I'd have to look at the bar or the numbers. But like whatever the number is before people get enraged or have some sort of like negative emotion potentially to it, like I think that number is what they try to get under, because they don't want levels of unbalance with a card like that. But that card, I think, is the one that kind of just speaks to that idea that like YOLO, anything can happen, you know, and like we're like it's going to do that crazy crap so much that because it's like 8 iterations of it, right? Sometimes, like, let's say if there's 150 spells, right? And 7 of them are terrible situations that you never want to happen to you. 7 of them are amazing situations that you always want to happen to you. And everything else in between is just like, okay, this is fine. You know, like these things can happen and the game keeps going. But if like there's a polarization of like 7 and 7 on each side, right? And there's this small percentage of the whole, and there's 8 iterations of that.
Yeah.
And like by the end of that, 8 iterations, maybe not 8 iterations, let's say like 15 iterations if you really wanted to go on with Yogg. But 15 iterations, you're going to either get this massively successful thing or massively unsuccessful thing because there's too many iterations of that thing. And so at that point, like you want to bring it back to the game, the card is 30 mana at that point. You spent 10 mana on a 7/5, and then you get 30 mana of random effects. That's why the card's good. It's 30 mana in one turn.
Right.
Like it's nuts.
Right.
And sometimes it just wins you the game, you know? So it's like, why wouldn't you play it?
Right.
So,
Right.
I don't know.
That's
I think it needs more downside. Let's just print crappy spells. Maybe that's how they solve it in the next set. They're like, look, we made it too strong. So what we're gonna do is instead of fixing it, we're gonna put 17 really junky spells into the set. Just absolutely terrible spells. We don't want the card in the meta anymore. That's how you fix it. That's actually maybe how you fix it.
So, okay, here we go. So DRC confirmed the next adventure is going to be, let me think through some lore here. All right, chat, help me out with this. What's I'm thinking through.
This is where we need Mushu. Dang it.
It's going to be Medivh's, it'll be in Karazhan, in the basement of Karazhan. And it's just going to be horrible, terrible spells. I don't know. I have no idea.
Everything's garbage spells.
Yeah. 10 mana, do one damage.
Mana, yeah. 10 mana, do 1 damage. That's what we need. Make Yogg make Yogg great again, not amazing. Actually, that's actually a reasonable way to manage it.
Maybe, yeah.
Because I think of like Tuskar Totemic. Tuskar Totemic got a lot more powerful with this set because we lost crappy totems and now there's more consistency with the really good ones.
Yep.
So it's another of those random effects that I'm not really a big proponent of. But like again, there's a lot of flexibility with design with those 2 cards, I suppose. Mm-hmm. But I think the Yogg one, you got to print a bunch of non-good ones because I think it's way over the bounds of being always positive. Like I think it's a little bit too strong on its positivity versus its negativity once you get to a certain number of spells.
I hear you.
So yeah, and it's in that again that there's that point where there's too many good moments, like where it's just like boom, I win the game. There's too many of those. You need to cut those out a bit. Maybe we just cut some of those cards instead. Trying to think what I would want to cut there. Pyroblast. Let's just get rid of Pyroblast first.
You want to cut Pyroblast?
No, I actually like Pyroblast as a card.
Yeah.
It's not the real issue.
All right. Well, so we're talking about the meta and cards that we don't like. Play Jazz. Millhouse Mana Storm's Bathroom Adventure. Done. There you go. Blizzard, that one's free. We fixed Yogg-Saron and given you a badass adventure. Millhouse Mana Storm's Bathroom Adventure.
17 crappy spells.
Yes. Yeah. It's amazing.
And they're all free, says Millhouse.
Yeah. But they're not. So, but I got an email in. So we're gonna I have a bunch of decks that people have sent in, but we're gonna go with this one because I've been messing with this deck for the past week, and it's been around for a couple weeks now. And I believe, I think it was Crip who made this deck. I'm not going to DRC confirm that. I believe it was. If I'm incorrect, I apologize. But it is the Disneyland Warrior, which is they call it Disneyland because it's like Zoolock, but it's a Warrior Zoo budget deck. And I like the idea of the deck because it's a budget build, and like I said a couple minutes ago, we more focus on kind of top tier, standard only. We don't really talk about arena or wild or any of that stuff.
We really haven't focused on that for quite some time.
No, but with the meta being kind of figured out, and this is a fun way, and it does counter a lot of decks. It definitely has its drawbacks. I'm going to go through this list. Just my experience and when I've been reading other people's experience, this deck is really good against other aggro decks. It's bad. You can win. I have beaten several control decks with this, but it's bad against control decks. So here is the vanilla list.
Wait, but so this is this is an all vanilla card.
I'm going to do the I guess the quote original version of this deck. And
so this is the one that has no rares in it, right? This is like the
yes.
commons and what's the other one? And like classic cards?
Yes. And I'm going to go ahead and put it in chat so they can follow along. So basically email says James says, DRC. I like that, by the way. Thank you. Thank you for doing that for us. Hey guys, just been looking at this deck. It is Disneyland Warrior by Crip, and was wondering what you guys would swap out if you wanted to make this deck more competitive, since it is more of a beginner's deck. Thanks, love the show.
Yeah.
So here is the vanilla list. Here, where did it go? Here it is. 2 Executes, an Inzoth's First Mate, 2 Battle Rage, 1 Cleave, 2 Cruel Taskmaster, 2 Fiery Windaxe, 2 Slam, 2 Ravaging Gold, 2 Arathi Weaponsmith, 2 Bloodhoof Brave, 2 Kor'kron Elite. So there are all the warrior cards. And neutral cards. 2 Acidic Swampoos, 2 Loot Hoarder, 2 Acolyte of Pain, 2 Shattered Sun Cleric, and 2 Garabashi Berserker.
Okay.
So, changes. Obviously, you can throw some legendaries in there. Like if you have Gramash, throw Gramash in there. Right. And take out like a Garabashi. But in
like if you have Malkarok, throw it in.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Sure. But in keeping with the spirit of keeping it cheaper, right. if you've got a deck list or you've got a deck library that's greater than I guess your normal free to play player, what are some things that we can put in? We kind of talked about it before the show, but let's talk about it. Let's shake up the meta. What are we gonna do?
Well, one more thing before we talk about it. I think Warrior is the perfect class to talk about with this kind of thing, because Warrior got a lot of really powerful cards in this last set, and Warrior already had a lot of powerful classic and neutral cards, or classic and basic cards that are both in their class and that are neutral as well. So they've got already like a pretty solid foundation. So it's kind of good to move towards Warrior to some extent for the next year. Because when the new sets come out, when the next expansion comes out, when the solo adventures come out, if you still intend to play this game at that point, Warrior's a good direction. So I think this is like a perfect example of a kind of a deck that is good building block deck, because those cards aren't all going to be garbage once the next set comes out. It's not like the meta is going to shift so dramatically that those cards are not going to be viable in some way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. So yeah, anyway, so this is like the perfect deck for us to discuss this kind of more budget thing on anyways. But the one thing that stands out to me, Mike, was Shattered Sun Cleric. While it is my favorite card in the entire game, I think it is my favorite card in the entire game, and it's where I think 3 mana should be from here on out. Like I think a 3/2 that has minimal upside for 3 mana is exactly where most 3-drops should be. That being said, I don't think Shattered Sun Cleric is powerful enough to really warrant its slot in the deck, especially where it's only got 2 defense and you've got effects like Ravaging Ghouls and you don't have those in this build. You have, I'm sorry, what was the other card? Ravaging Ghouls and Cruel Taskmaster type effects. Those effects that deal damaging to your own minions, right? As well as having Battle Rage, which says the more damaged your minion is, or if your minion's damaged, you get extra cards. And so the ability to get extra cards is kind of limited through Shattered Sun Cleric because it doesn't help you reach that goal. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So I feel like there's some lack of synergy with that card. It just doesn't feel quite good enough there. Mm-hmm. Is that, do you think that, I don't know, do you think that seems like a reasonable assessment there?
I think that the card is great in a budget deck because, I mean, vanilla Shattered Sun Cleric was great. And before it was nerfed way back when, I think a lot of people said it was like the best card in the game.
Wait, it was nerfed at one time?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, it was a 3/3 with the same effect.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's very powerful as a 3/3.
Yeah. But, you know, if you don't have the library, I think it's a good card. You know, it's kind of I'm thinking like Arena. When you play this card, your opponent might make a play saying, all right, guys, got a 2/2 on the board, and I have a 2/3, or something like that, or and you're
like, I'll put my 2/3 out, and I'll be ahead,
or I'm thinking,
and then all of a sudden they just kill it.
Yeah, or he's got like a 6/3, something where you'd need one more attack to clear that minion to make it worth it. When he's like, I'm just going to go face and go for it, and even then that might still be the correct play. But this is a good way of saying, all right, surprise,
you're punished.
I've got it.
Killing my minions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It can punish people who don't play around the card. Which used to be a thing.
I mean, how
do
you play around Shattered Sun Cleric?
Right.
Yeah, but not anymore. Exactly. Back then, I guess you played around it more often. Right?
Yes. Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
Anyway, my favorite card in the game, but still, I think that feels like the card that least synergizes with what the deck's trying to do. Out of all the other cards.
I hear you.
Now, I understand why it's there, because again, a pump effect is very strong when you're trying to play like a zoo deck. When you want to go like Inzoth First Mate is my first dude, and then be like Loot Hoarder, and then put out a Shattered Sun Cleric and just get ahead that way.
Yeah.
But again, there just seems to be inconsistency with cards like Cruel Taskmaster. It's hard to, it works okay with, and and it works okay with a Whirlwind effect if you can play them the same turn. But generally, it's pretty hard to keep a 3/2 on the board. 3/2s are pretty, like the lower the defense, the less likely that it's going to interact with cards that say it wants to take damage and be on the board. Things like Battle Rage. So that's the thing that stands out to me. What is there any other card that you would think would be worth cutting there, Mike?
The Berserkers, the Garabashi Berserkers. Okay. I like the health on them, and I understand the reasoning behind it. You can pump them up with a lot of your abilities. And it has a lot of health, so it can eat a lot of potential opponent spells, or because they know, it's a warrior and it's something that gets buffed off doing damage to your own minions, or damage at all, even from me. So it's a threat, but I feel like that the other card we were talking about putting in, I don't know why I can't think of the name of it right now. Let me look it up. The 3-drop.
When we were talking about Silithid Swarmer?
No, Frothing Berserker.
No? Oh, Frothing Berserker.
I feel like I would rather play a Frothing Berserker. I don't know.
But I think if you play Frothing Berserker, at that point you have to change the makeup of the deck slightly to have like things like Blood Dicker. Because Blood Dicker gives you more 1-drop plays, so you're a little bit lower to the ground, right? Because then you can use it to pump your Frothing Berserker. You can also use it to make these like minimal like transitional plays, like just like deal 1 damage, I have a 2/2 at trades, or sometimes you might get lucky and get a 2/2 that stays on board, and then you can make a trade and your Frothing Berserker comes out as a 4/4 for 3 mana.
Right.
Because the 2/2 does damage to their minion that's on the board. Generally, that means that there's been 2 minions that take damage. So if you have 1 minion on the board and they put 1 minion on the board and you're slightly ahead and you just attack, that Frothing Berserker is already a 4/4 for 3. And it just has upside after that. So Frothing Berserkers does seem like a pretty safe pickup here. Like that's the card. That's probably the next card I would move towards if you wanted to move a little bit away from budget, because again, it's not a common. It's a a rare, I believe.
Yes.
So and again though, it's a rare. So its cost is relatively low overall comparative to like picking up legends and those kind of things. So it's an easy transitional card when you want to try to develop another powerful card in this type of strategy. Yeah, I totally think Frothing Berserker is the perfect transition with that card. Like that way you get rid of the Garabashis and you pick up the Frothing Berserkers. I like it.
Yeah.
And then I think if you're going to do that, you want to trim a little bit of fat as well. So like we talked about the Shattered Sun Clerics. So let's just say we cut the Shattered Suns and we picked up like 2 Blood Dickers or something like that.
Yeah.
And then there's another card that stands out to me. And that card is that there's is a Wrathy Weaponsmith and Acidic Swamp Ooze. The thing that I like to do when I'm assessing cards, when I'm trying to like design and figure out what cards I want into a deck, is to try and get them into like a class, like number 1 classes are like the best cards. Number 2 class being the lower tier, and then it's just like tiering a deck, right? You're tier 1 decks, tier 2 decks, tier 3 decks, tier 4 decks, just tiering the cards instead. And there's cards that are situational, like Acidic Swamp Ooze, that fall perfectly into a tier system where you can identify them relatively well, because Acidic Swamp Ooze, if we just removed its text, is a 2-mana 3/2. So again, let's go back to like how we were thinking about the deck. Shattered Sun Cleric is a 3/2, right? So this is another 3/2. It doesn't have high health, so it actually loses some synergies with the Battle Rages. And since now that we picked up Blood Dicker and we've also got Frothing Berserker, some of our cards are trying to say, hey, how do we deal damage to our own minions? So I think maybe cutting down from 2 acidic swamp oozes down to 1 ends up being relatively good. Now, granted, like the times, I think you were the one who mentioned this to me, Mike, when we quickly ran through this before we started. Weren't you saying that like it's just insane when it's good though? Like it's just like its power level is its ability is so strong when it's good, because at that point it's like what, a 3/2 for 2 that kills something. Like it's like a 2 for 1 on 2 mana, and it's a 3/2 body. Like that's a strong card.
Yeah.
But the problem is that it's not good in the overall amount of matchups. And I think as the warrior class, you want to be able to be good against everything, because the warrior class is arguably the best class right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think cutting an acidic swamp ooze might be good.
Yeah. The only time I would say, and reading through this and reading what a lot of people are saying, this deck can punish warrior, and it depending on the deck, like control warrior, like you've just got to go for it. But it really punishes paladins and especially shamans. Aggro paladin, let me put it that way. But shamans, this is like a great deck against shaman. So if you're playing against a bunch of shaman, just try this deck. Give it a try.
For sure, it's definitely going to be pretty strong against shaman.
Yeah, and the double acidic swamp ooze is, it just makes sure you have it for when they drop the Doomhammer. Now, if they drop it turn 8 and you're down to, or turn 9 and you're down to 10 health, you're done anyway. But if they throw it out as an investment, that's a big investment. And you've just shattered it. But that's it. And I agree with you. I think 1 is enough.
Yeah, so that gives us like 1 extra free slot in the deck so far.
Do you feel like maybe even taking 1 out and putting in a Harrison, or do you want to keep that 3/2 in there for other matchups? Like, just so you have a 2-drop to blight, like if you're playing against Druid. I think
the Wrathy Weaponsmith fits better with the core concept of this deck than picking up a Harrison Jones. So like Harrison Jones, again, very expensive. It's a legendary. So like it doesn't fit in that budget theme, but from a conceptual standpoint, I think it's a 6 Swamp Ooze is a slightly better card for this archetype. However, if you move into like the more top end heavy builds that would run something like Ragnaros or Malkarok or Grom or something, some of those legendary finishers that the more mid-rangey builds of this style of deck, this sort of like warrior deck plays, where at that point it has a better control warrior matchup, you know, because it has that longevity of creatures and big tough creatures for the most part, which is again why Garabashi Berserker is solid in this kind of a deck, because it's a big tough creature. But it's not the most powerful effect at 5 mana. There's probably something better that you can squeeze into this type of deck. And you may I mean, it's not terrible. Again, it's still okay, but it's just as you want to move forward, maybe you pick up like some more legendaries or some other things that you would want in this deck. And that's when you can start considering things like Harrison. But Harrison is the kind of card that like, I just rather, if I don't own a Harrison Jones, just play the Acidic Swamp Ooze. You know, like it's not much downside comparative. So, and or to have an Acidic Swamp Ooze versus a Harrison. And Harrison's actually a worse card on its base stats than Acidic Swamp Ooze. Well, like if you talk about its base stats being 2 mana, 3/2, 6 Swamp Ooze, I'll take all day over a 5 mana 5.
And now I'm thinking about it. If you're playing against a shaman and they play it naked, a Doomhammer, you might not want to draw that many cards.
You may not even need it. You might want the Acidic Swamp Ooze in armor up. Because you're like, I need to gain life now, but if I can kill this weapon right now, I'll probably win the game. You know, like, so there are times when, again, a 6 Swamp Ooze will just be inherently better than Harrison for you, but not always. Again, it's again, these are both situational cards. And so that's why I think Acidic Swamp Ooze is the type of card I go down to 1. It's a situational card. You know, there's situations where it's fantastic. There's situations where it's okay. And there's situations where it's just meh. I'd rather have another card right now than the second 6 Swamp Ooze. So it's just not great. And there's one other that I want to mention of that exact same idea. It's a Wrathy Weaponsmith. Wrathy Weaponsmith is a very powerful card to be able to like effectively have charge in a sense, because it gets an equip of a 2/2 weapon, and it says charge don't take it. Basically, it's like I think of Rogue's SI7 agent, but instead of Rogue's SI7 agent where it says deal 2 damage, get a 3/3, and this one's more kind of like get a 3/3, take damage, but deal 2 damage. You know, like you take the damage in addition to doing the 2 damage. That's like the difference there, and that's why the card's not as powerfully or commonly played as like an SI7 agent. But the card's really powerful. So but again, you're taking the damage, and that's why I think two of them becomes more situational and where you don't really want to. Because if you have an overcommitment on a Wrathy Weaponsmith, that means you're using maybe your life too much as a resource. Now, as an aggressive deck, it's really good. Like you were saying, though, it's really good to be able to destroy Zoo. You know, like you're like, sure, Zoo, here's another weapon, and you just keep killing everything, and then you have this 3/3 body out of nowhere. It's great there. So if you're running into Zoo, that's when you'd want to bring back in your Wrathy Weaponsmiths potentially, or maybe not Zoo necessarily, but like, low to the ground hunter type decks. It's good against to have a Wrathy Weaponsmith. We've got all those 3/2s floating around.
Right.
So the card has merit in this format and against a number of the relatively top tier decks that you'll see in the ladder, because they're the decks that most people are playing on ladder. So like, I think Weaponsmith's fine in the deck, but again, if you're trying to upgrade the deck a bit, it's one of those cards that, again, it's situational enough that I feel like it's potentially worth cutting. But again, if you see a lot of Zoo or you see a lot of decks where it's good against, you can bring it back in as a 2-of. But like, it's the kind of card I'm happy to have one in my deck.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that frees up 2 slots there again.
Yeah.
So at that point, we have 2 more slots to potentially put something else in the deck. I'm not actually sure what else if we wanted to trade some other things around, what it would be. And at that point, I think it comes down to like, do you have one of those legendaries? Like what pieces have you managed to gather up over the time to be able to stick some other little cards inside the deck? The other kind of cards that I think of that are staples in the game that you can consider crafting just to add to the deck are things like Azure Drakes. And the reason I like saying Azure Drake as a suggestion is because it has the most powerful effect in the entire game on it. It says draw card, right? It's a decent body. And then on top of that, it has some synergy now with our Blood Dickers. It has some synergy with
Blood Dickers,
the Cleave that's in the deck. Yeah. It has a synergy with the Slam. So there's some ways to interact positively with it. And on top of that, it's the kind of card, and while it may not be the best card to fit in this deck, it's the kind of card that's a great building block card, because Azure Drake is probably one of the best, if not the best, 5-drop in the game right now. And so it's a perfect building block, and it's also a classic card, and it's a rare. So it's one of those cards that, like, if you can acquire an Azure Drake into your collection, it'll help you fill out other decks if you ever want to play other decks. So that's why I make that suggestion. It's not necessarily the best option ever, but it's the card that stands out the most to me as Azure Drake when we're talking about this. So yeah, there's that there. I try to steer clear of like any of the solo adventures when it comes to these kind of things as well. But if you have one of the solo adventures done, you can consider playing things like Fierce Monkey, which was in League of Explorers. That's a solid card. It's got a big butt, which you want to add that big butt, that 3/4, so you can make your battle rages better.
Big booty.
Yeah, and some other big butt creatures are like Armor Smiths. But again, if you wanted to be more low to the ground and better against only the aggressive decks, because this build isn't very good against the Control Warrior deck, Armor Smith is not really like, it's not always the greatest. It's just it's solid. It's solid because it's good against the aggro deck sometimes to gain a bunch of life, but it's not like the best threat ever. It's not like one of those cards that I feel obligated to play, because it's only a 1/4, so its impact can be very situational at times. But its impact when it's good is very, very good again. So I don't know. I kind of think of that and as a card that you can consider, but it's not a standout card again. I haven't found a standout card that really speaks to me that says this is a budget card that I really want to play. So I think at this point, those 2 other flex spots that we've made in the deck are the kind of things that you can play around with based on what you have in your collection. Yeah, anything else to add there, Mike? I think that pretty much, like, is there any other cards that you feel like were not great in the deck?
I'm trying to keep this in the you're playing against aggro decks mindset.
Yeah, because you have to make the assumption that this deck doesn't win to Cthulhu Warrior.
No,
they gain way too much armor and you can't beat them. You have to, like you were saying, you have to go all in.
Yeah,
you have to be like, all right, let's do it. It's not based on what I have. It's based on what you have.
Yeah.
Do you have the cards?
I like that this deck is sort of like Zoolock, because you can flip the switch and go control with it for a while and then drop the hammer once you feel like you're ahead enough. But it doesn't have... And it does have the ability to go aggro against your control decks. You have to get it right off the go and just, okay, go. Because the later it gets, that timer goes off and you're just gonna lose. I don't know. Like, I like the Bloodhoof Braves in it. Obviously, the Ravage Eagle is amazing in the deck. I don't think I'd want to take out the Kor'kron Elites. There's a lot of synergy there with the Cruel Taskmasters.
Yeah, and Kor'kron Elite has the second best ability in the whole game on its text. The best ability again being draw a card. The second best being charge. Actually, it's arguably better. Charge is arguably better than drawing cards in this game sometimes.
I hear you. I have seen versions of this running.
Charge is incredible.
Argent Commanders, like a one of. I'm trying to think what they took out.
I mean, I've been running Argent Commander off and on in deck lists before too. So like I think the card's really strong, and it's one of those cards that punishes Warrior sometimes because it's hard for Warrior to, outside of you doing its 1 damage to everything effects, which sometimes they'll have, but like if they do a Blood Dicker on it and then trade to it, it's not bad of a trade because then your 4/2 makes the trade, and it has charge, so like you already are able to charge in with your Argent Commander and kill something and then have a 4/2 body left over.
Right.
So it's hard for them to deal 2 damage in that matchup. But again, it does have a really small butt, so you have to consider that. But when you're making that decision, which is why I don't think Argent Commander is like a 2 of. It's not the type of card you want. If you're gonna play 2 of it, I think it's a little bit risky. I've done it before. I played for instance in the America's Championship, I played 1 Leroy Jenkins and 1 Argent Commander in my Warrior list, which multiple people were like, you're crazy. And I'm like, well, I expect a lot more aggressive decks, so I'm going to race them. My game plan is to keep up and build the mid-game plan and get ahead, and I'm not going to have the top-end plan against Warrior, or whatever it may be. I had a very specific need for it, and it's where I expected it to be good. And so it's not bad, but generally it's like a one-of kind of card in the deck because it's just a 4/2. It doesn't synergize with these big butt creatures that you're trying to synergize with for the most part.
Yeah.
With this new build, at least, where you're trying to be aggressive. But maybe that's another way that we can approach this too. Maybe we just pick up 2 Argent Commanders and just lose like the Shattered Sun Clerics and be a little more top end heavy. I mean, that's another way to approach the deck if you're seeing more like mid range decks.
Yeah. You think of dropping like 6 drops, like I don't know, or maybe more 5 drops?
I mean, if we're cutting Garabashi Berserker, maybe we would do 1 of 5 drop in the deck.
Okay.
Like an Azure Drake as a 1. I don't know.
Oh yeah, no, definitely, yeah.
Again, like I said, like it's one of those kind of things where it's just like everyone's gonna have some pieces. Maybe you have something else that fits in the deck or something.
I'm almost wondering if Azure Drake's a better card than Garabashi Berserker. I guess there's more end game potential with the Garabashi Berserker, but the Azure Drake moves you through your deck and puts a threat on the board.
Sure.
I don't know.
What if you also cut like a Cruel Task? Oh, okay, I got it. So if we've cut the Shattered Sun Clerics for the Blood Dickers.
Yep. We've
cut the Garabashi Berserkers for the 2/4, and now we've gotten rid of our 5 drops, right? So we don't have a 5 drop anymore. What if we pick up? We cut 2 cards. So we cut 2 cards. So the extra Acidic Swamp Ooze, the extra Wrathy Weaponsmith, and now we have 2 slots available, right? So why don't we pick up Stranglethorn Tiger? Because it's a common card, right? It's not a very expensive card, but it also gives you that extra burst potential, which means that like in those games where you're just like Stranglethorn, put it down, you can burst and kill them. It also trades pretty well into threats, so you can use the 5/5 to trade into a threat and then cast Battle Rage, so it still synergizes really well with that. I think that might be the kind of card that fits there, if you want to keep it cheap as well. Like it's a great in-game threat. And then that also means that at that point, our Cruel Taskmasters get better, because currently this build has 2 Cruel Taskmasters that say, because Cruel Taskmaster is a 2/2 for 2 that says deal 1 damage to a minion, it gets +2 attack. So like generally you're going to use that in this style of deck more aggressively on your own minions. Not always, but sometimes you might do it that way. And that way you have something like Stranglethorn to just dome them for 7. Now I understand that Garabashi Berserker does the same thing, but Berserker's an exposed threat, and it doesn't always hit for 5. Sometimes they'll just go like Stampeding Kodo, you get wrecked. Sometimes, I mean, that's the worst case scenario. Sometimes they'll go like Entomb, it gets wrecked. That's like, again, a bad case scenario.
Right.
But other times it's going to be like you play a 2/7, they have a 5/5 like a Stranglethorn Tiger on the board, they attack the 2/7, and then they trade their really wimpy like little thing into it. And then they took 2 damage on their Stranglethorn Tiger and they traded a 2-drop with your 2/7. So there's just like that's why I'm not a huge proponent for Garabashi Berserker here. It doesn't, when you're behind, it doesn't really do enough for you. But Stranglethorn Tiger, when you're behind, does a ton for you, and when you're ahead, it's still just a solid 5/5 for 5. You know, like its downside is less, I think, and so that's another card that I would consider in that slot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that really like wraps up kind of what we would do with this deck for the most part.
Yeah.
And keep it basically its core components together. But we were talking about another build of the deck, right? If you instead took the same idea of being a warrior deck and said, and I've been messing around with the card Silithid Swarmer. We were talking about it because it just got unneutered, right? Or well, not unneutered. It got better. It got buffed with the new with the new beast tag tacked on Silithid Swarmer. We talked about that at the beginning of the podcast. Silithid Swarmer has gotten, in theory, to be a better card. And now it's not really better in this deck, but it's something that I've been messing around with because of that. So like if you happen to have Silithid Swarmers because you've been opening up the new set specifically, and those are the cards that you have from the League of or from the Old God set, you might have a Silithid Swarmer or two floating in your collection. In that case, you can take a different approach to the design of this deck. At that point, because the deck used to have like one Inzoth's First Mate, and Inzoth's First Mate gives you a 1/3 weapon. So you could use instead of one Inzoth's First Mate, you could go up to 2 Inzoth's First Mates and pick up 2 Silithid Swarmers, and then also keep your 2 Arathi Weaponsmiths now, plus your 2 Fiery War Axe, and all of a sudden you have 6 weapons in your deck. So you're very commonly going to have weapons all the time, and that makes your Silithid Swarmer a little bit better. And maybe more consistent. At that point, you can also even consider picking up like a one of Arcanite Reaper. Do you remember that one? The 5 mana 5/2 weapon. So that's like 10 damage for 5 mana over 2 turns. The thing hits really hard. It almost hits as hard as a Rockbiter Doomhammer does. And that combination hits for 10 over 1 turn, but this hits for 10 over 2 turns, and it's only 1 card. So it hits relatively similar in the amount of just raw damage output it can put out in the first 2 turns, but it doesn't like have that longevity like that like Doomhammer does. So it's not quite as good as Doomhammer, but it's still really quite good as a nice finisher weapon. And so at that point, you've got 7 weapons in your deck, which may be a little bit too much because sometimes you're not going to get the value you want out of those weapons. Right. But the real value you want out of those weapons is to be able to attack every single turn when you have the Silithid Swarmers. And it gives you a nice 3-drop body. And that really makes you very strong against a lot of those aggressive decks. And it has that 5 butt. And so it still has synergy with Battle Rage. And now with the Blood Dickers, if you're running those, and with the Cruel Taskmasters as well, because there's going to be times when you can like make trades with the Cruel Taskmaster and still keep the dude on the board. You know, all of a sudden you turn into a 5/4 instead, and you're like, all right, kill your dude, and then I still keep a 5/2 around or a 5/1 around or something. So like I'm just like, those are just some things to think about, different directions you can go with this deck without really breaking the core concept of what it is. And they're going to keep it relatively budget, and and all the cards that we named were cards that, for the most part, outside of Silithid Swarmer, will be guaranteed to be pretty much meta cards forever and be around in the game for a while. So at least a year.
Yeah.
I hope that helps.
I like it. Yeah. I think so, James. I hope that helps. Thanks for writing in, by the way. We'll be getting more decks. I've got a bunch of emails that have come in, so we'll talk about those later. But yeah, this is fantastic. Again, I really like the idea of this deck for someone who doesn't have a huge library.
It's just perfect for starting.
Yeah. Well, great. That was fantastic.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm glad we got to go through a deck like that because there's nothing really else to talk about with like competitive level. And I know that caters to a lot of the people who watch the or listen to the podcast, but it's always good to come back and recognize that like not everybody is going to be at that level yet, and we need to help people get to that level if that's what they're interested in. And
I think a lot of people they're wanting to mess with deck building right now. I know it's kind of counterintuitive, or at least that's what I'm seeing from like the YouTube scene and the Twitch scene. It's kind of okay, these are the decks that are going to win you games, but let's try something else. And it's not, I mean, we kind of talked about it. It's not so much countering as much as building decks now is min-maxing. What do you think?
Oh, sure.
It's hard to counter the ladder meta.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think? Tournaments, do you counter? I'm sure there's a min-max there as well, but I bet that's more about countering than it is min-maxing. I don't know. I'm sure it's both.
I'd say it's both. Yeah, both those aspects are in there. But yeah, finding a counter deck to something is a very strong thing to have if you're expecting something at a tournament. Like if everybody's playing aggro lineups, finding something that's strong against an aggro lineup is going to be better. You want to design your decks with intentions in a tournament setting. On ladder, you just want to make the most streamlined, everybody plays a deck with slight adjustments. Just slight adjustments all the way through. So. I also think at this point in the meta, it's not really true when you're at a lower ranks, but when you get to like rank 5 or so, there's less people that are playing at the same time at that ranking. You can make some decision choices there that say, I'm going to play this deck and I'm going to have these 3 decks on deck. The other 3 decks are going to be waiting. And so when you finish a game and you've played a couple games, you're like, man, the last 5 games have been warrior. You can sometimes make transitional choices where you're like, I'm going to switch over to this deck. And I know this deck's just as good or relatively just as good, but if I'm running into this much warrior, I can make a transition into try and combat the warrior deck a little bit differently. And they're all the same deck, right? They're all the same idea. Like one might be better against Zoo as compared to one build being better against Shaman, or one build is better against aggro versus better against control. You can make those kind of approaches with ladder, but for the most part, ladder is like, here is your deck. You have a couple choices to make. But other than that, your best way if you really want to grind the ladder is to like have a couple variants built. Like what I do is I do them in slots of 3 if I'm actually trying to like really grind the ladder, which I don't really grind the ladder and I just can't stand it. I think we talked about this many times before. But one of the things you can do is like you have 18 slots of decks to build from, and you can take your first slot, your second slot, and your third slot and make them all the exact same deck. And then you can take your 4th slot, your 5th slot, and your 6th slot and make them all the exact same deck, and then your 7th, your 8th, and your 9th and do the same thing. And then at that point, you've only got 3 decks selected, but they're all slight variations on that deck. So if you're like, I'm going to play Zoo today, and you're like playing Zoo, and all of a sudden you see a bunch of Zoo, you're like, man, I'm only playing 1 Sea Giant in this Zoo deck, but I have this other build of Zoo deck that I've got featuring 2 Sea Giants. You can switch over to the 2 Sea Giant build, and that's going to increase your win percentage slightly. So like those kind of things for ladder are the way to approach it, but yeah. I don't know. I can't stand ladder. Why just promote the tournament setting to everybody? Yeah, the tournament setting is the way to play the game. Yeah. Makes it more fun.
When are we going to get it in game?
Accessibility is an issue, though.
I think, we've talked about this, like getting a tournament in game. I don't know if that's ever. I just don't know if that would work.
They're hiring new UI developer.
Oh.
Yeah, there was a post put out that I saw on Twitter that was they were hiring a new user face developer, and so or like maybe art and user face developer. I don't remember exactly what it was, but something along those lines. So maybe they're trying to hire on another part of that. There's there were 2 people that there was a video with Ben Brode and like 2 other people. I don't remember their names. I apologize to those 2 people because I did not research this beforehand. But Ben Brode with his iconic face popped in and were like, check out these 2. They're going to work together with you. So like they've got 3 people on that team. They're growing that team. Maybe it will start some sort of production level on it.
That'd be awesome.
It would be cool.
That'd be real.
I think
sweet.
I as a Spike player, I would thoroughly enjoy that. And I don't think the tournament setting has to just be for Spikes. That's why I think it's great. I think it's a good thing because like if you make it accessible to the common general player who's not a Spike, that doesn't try to like win every single game like I would try to do. I'm like more Spike oriented. I think it really just benefits the community and the game for the most part. We've talked about that too.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Anything else about the meta?
Dude, it's solved.
Yeah.
Meta's solved. I saw a post also from Ben Brode that said there was maybe it wasn't Ben Brode. I always hear stuff and then I just forget who's actually saying it. I just root it back to Ben Brode now when it's something talking about Hearthstone. But somebody in their design team or something was doing an interview or something, and they were talking about how there may be a deck still left in this format. I just don't think there is.
No, yeah, it was it him?
It wasn't.
I know. I'm asking myself.
Oh, I don't know. It's terrible because
it was a dev. Yeah, you're right.
Enough contact.
Yeah, he said there is. Yeah, they said there is another deck. I was reading the comments and it's the internet. It's Reddit. Yeah, right. They're just trying to. I don't know.
Buy an extra 3 days.
What could it
before
be?
People aren't happy.
Right. What could it be? I don't know. And are they just insinuating, oh, it's another deck? It's Control Warrior, but instead of Grimace, you put in this. It's all the same.
Yeah.
I don't know. What could it be? What class is not being played right now?
Beneath the Yogg Rogue, dude. I'm telling you.
Maybe that's
the
it.
new meta.
Maybe we solved it right here. And they're like, oh, damn it. Brad found it. I mean,
Beneath the Grounds in Yogg, new meta.
What's the least played? Is it Priest on ladder right now?
Priest, easily Priest.
All right, how do we fix Priest? Like, I like the Inzoth Priest. I mean, I'm not saying it's the best deck ever, but it's fun to play. I like it.
I can tell you how to fix Priest.
Okay.
Rotate classic cards. Or give them new classic cards or ban basic cards.
Yeah.
Make them not a mind control class. No one wants to play against people who steal all their stuff all the time.
I was thinking about that. The day, like the deck build that I'm playing, the Zombie Priest. I've got two Cabal Shadow Priests, but the number, and I played a lot of Priest.
Yeah, I know you like Priest.
Oh, I love Priest.
I feel bad for you, dude.
I know. I play Priest in Warcraft, so it's just that's my jam. That's my main jam.
Gotcha.
What is it? It's a 3-drop, and it's no longer.
Is it a 3/4 that has Death Rattle that gives +3?
It is the
okay.
Shrink your opponent's.
Shrinkmeister.
Shrink. There you go. Thank you, Shrinkmeister.
It's a 2-mana spell. Yeah,
is it 2? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is it that is a priest card, right? No.
It is a priest card.
Why did I not see it? Am I blind?
I believe it was from Goblins vs. Gnomes. Yeah,
You're
there
right.
it is. I see it now. I'm looking at my collection.
Is it 2-drop?
It is a 2-mana 3/2 that gives a minion -2 attack this turn with its battle cry.
Why don't I see it? Chat, why can't I see it?
You probably got rid of all of them. You're like, this card's never seeing play again. Why would I keep this in my collection?
I don't know.
Oh, that's right. You have a finished collection, so you can keep it. Never mind.
Oh, it's because I'm looking at standard cards. That's why. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
That's why. Okay, so yeah, it feels real bad because the number of times where I'm like, oh, I'd love to steal that card right now, especially with all these Enzoth cards that we've played, where it's like, I've stolen Tyrians before, or it's really easy to steal Karen Bloodhoof, or I don't know. Or if you're playing against another priest, you can steal their Shifting Shade, or I want that card back. But I know exactly what you mean, where it feels bad when it's just stole my card.
Yeah.
Oh, surprise! You stole my cards.
Yeah, in Magic they've moved those cards. So in Magic, the card is not inherently too powerful to play in Constructed, right? And that's how they approach it in Priest as well. But in Magic, they've recognized that it's a little bit too inherently powerful to have Mind Control as a draft card. And when I say draft, I mean like Magic drafting, which is a little bit different conceptually. Enough that like Magic drafting is I think much more skill intensive and also much more dynamic in the way that it plays out generally than Arena is. But that's neither here nor there. But the purpose of the reason I say that though is because Mind Control is too powerful effect and for them to print at like uncommon or like common kind of rarity. Common or even rare rarity here on Hearthstone. It would be more like an epic or a legendary type card in Magic, and they've kind of moved it and shifted to that kind of effect. And they don't have a lot of those types of effect generally in their version of Standard. And I think that's a design choice that they made. And I think I really agree with that design choice because I think it's just, and this is the same argument that they were making when they made this design choice maybe 7 years ago or something like this at this point. It's been 6 or 7 years. I think it was during original Innistrad block when I was playing back then is when they moved it to the rarity with there's a 6-mana version of it that they had in it. But nevertheless, basically the idea is that they recognize that kind of mechanic is not generally considered fun by the general populace to play against, and so they decided that they would re-identify the way that the color blue utilizes mind controls and those kind of effects, and they would kind of limit them down in number and size and amount. So I just think there's too many in Priest, and I think it'd be nice if they just got rid of all the classic and if we were to get rid of all the classic and basic and neutral cards, what's the other set? Classic, basic, and Is that all you keep? Oh yeah, just the classic and basic cards. But if they reduce the number of classic and basic cards that have mind control effects, and instead maybe even cut them entirely out and gave them like a light bomb instead as part of their core mechanics. So they've got like an AoE effect as their core mechanic that's pretty strong, or something else along those lines to be a little more control centric, similar to how Warrior is. And then maybe like printed those mind control tech or mind control type effects in Blackrock Mountain, you know, like in Grand Tournament and League of Explorers and Old Gods, these rotating sets. Those are the type of sets that I think it fits better into. And that way you can limit the amount of them that are in standard at any given time. And if you want to design a format with mind control effects, you can do that. But I just think there's a little bit too much. And I think that's something that I would also, from a design perspective, make a choice on. So
I just get the feeling, and it's always been this way, where Priest, like Druid, is a deck about buffing your, or having the potential to buff your minions on the board, like cards like Inner Fire or there's Power Word Shield, and then what was the big one?
Velen's Chosen. I love that card. Card was so strong, and I'm wondering why that wasn't. It was obviously put out after the game came out in an expansion, but that would be a card that I would like to see, put back into, I guess, the original lineup of the game or something like that, variant of it. There's not a lot of the deck wants to be a buff your minion deck, but it's so hard because people know, okay, if I leave the minions on the board, they're just going to go like Garibashi Berserker or anything with high health. If I see it, I know it's an Inner Fire deck, and I know whatever you do, get rid of whatever's on the board. You have to, otherwise they're going to turn around and just melt your face. But there's only a couple ways of doing that, and it's really easy to counteract it. If they want it to be a buff class where you can heal and keep your minions on the board, we don't have any way of doing that. It wants you to get value, but it's really, really difficult to get value with this class. Yeah. Like I think of like Shadow Madness, that's like a 2-for-1, but again, it's a steal effect. And so that's the kind of thing that I think would fit more into those core sets to give you those value cards that you want. And I think, or not core cards, the rotating sets, and then the things that you really, I think, help you gain value in this kind of a deck, it need to be something like they currently have Excavated Evil, and they give you that particular one, but something like Light Bomb maybe. I don't know if you want to give Light Bomb as a core card either, but like something along those lines, maybe something that does 7 mana or like even like an 8 mana Light Bomb type effect that people would play as a one of, similar to like Twisting Nether as a one of in some of these decks, like, or some of the Reno decks. But like I think that like my personal opinion is if you pull out Shadow Madness and you pull out Cabal Shadow Priest from the core sets, you open up some slots to be able to change the way that Priest works in its basic dynamics, because it already has Akanai Circle as one of its board clears. It has Holy Nova as one of its board clears, and it now has Excavated Evil as a board clear. And so it seems like that kind of slower, grindier game is what you generally want to be playing with Priest. And so that way you can put those core cards to be like that. And maybe in the next sets, then you can print aggressive cards into Priest. Like you want to print cards that are rotating in Priest, print them some aggressive cards. Like let them keep their core control mechanics and print them aggressive cards that aren't going to be good in those core control decks, and that way the things that shift in Priest will be the more aggressive builds of them, and they'll get these more powerful aggressive cards that are only good in aggressive card decks. That's the most important piece. Only good in the aggressive card decks. At that point, then I think the class becomes a little more dynamic with the release of each set, because as of right now, its core cards are not powerful enough. And also don't follow a preset theme, right? They the one preset theme they have is like steal effects and pseudo board wipes,
right?
And then there's a bunch of just random other effects that are heal spattered around, and then those like make your butts big kind of cards. So there's nothing that like feels like it's all coming together with what the class's core classic cards try to do in relations to the core classic cards and core classic decks that are evolving from other classes like Zoo, right? Like like as long as we have these core cards and we have these classic cards, and they choose not to change those out of their design, we have a format where Zoo is everywhere, and that's going to happen. And so like the Priest deck needs to be able to have something that rotates in that allows them to compete against Zoo, maybe. Not maybe the best deck, maybe not even as good as Zoo, but gives them a little bit more edge against that while still not having to play all these steal effects or these like other things. Like just giving them different. Maybe not Zoo's not a good example because they're not terrible against Zoo, but you get the idea. Like these decks that are always in here, they're for the most part not the best as compared to playing other decks like Warrior or something. So yeah, I don't know. Poor Priest.
Yeah. I mean, we did get cards that buff like Power Word Tentacles, obviously, with that, but it's really expensive. 5 mana for a 2/6 edition, and you need to have a minion on the board to get the value, and it just costs a lot. I don't. And the cards like Mass Dispel. What deck do we want to play Mass Dispel against? All right, so if you're playing against Death Rattle Druid, who puts that give Death Rattle all when your minions die, you get a 2/2 on the board. Okay, yeah, it's a good card. Maybe no, because you haven't even gotten rid of the cards yet. Is it good against Warsong Warrior or
Warsong Commander?
Yeah. Or
wait, no, that got nerfed.
I'm sorry. Yeah, the dwarves. Everyone get in here.
Grim Patron.
Patron Warrior.
not Warsong.
Yeah. I mean, you can silence all the patrons. Still got a bunch of patrons on the board that could just go, okay, well, I'm just going to hit you in the face anyway. Like it doesn't, the card doesn't solve anything and it's expensive. Yes, it gives you some cards, or it gives you a card. It's just expensive. All the cards where it's like, oh, that card would be great if it wasn't so expensive.
Yeah, and again, like there's like situational removal, but I think situational removal is something like a design choice that they made a while ago. Like a lot of classes have burn spells that are situational because they don't beat big things.
Yeah.
And then Shadow Word Pain is situational. Shadow Word Death is situational. Execute is situational. Shield Slam is situational. And I like that idea of situational removal. Like I think that's a fine thing to design in. It's just that like it's unfortunate that the situation that Priest falls in is like the situation is Azure Drake being played on a regular? Is Twilight Drake being played on the regular? You know, like is Piloted Shredder in the format? Okay, well, Shadow Word Death and Shadow Word Pain are garbage against it. Yeah. And so maybe we have to reassess, you know, like, but like, and so sometimes there's going to be metas where it just, the class doesn't fit into because they don't have enough tools to even try and play in the class or in the, but yeah. Yeah. I can't remember when the set came out at first, the Old God set. There were multiple people who came in my channel and were like, oh man, Priest is going to be so good. And I was just like, I really think Priest is the weakest class out of all of them. But then I was like kind of surprised at first because the Dragon Warrior deck was doing, or Dragon Priest deck was doing okay. And I think that was just because more people were playing aggressive decks. Yeah. And it just does well against those aggressive decks, you know? But once the meta finally, like people started recognizing like the best and most refined aggressive decks. Once
you start getting stuff with 4 attack, it's like, all right, well, let's play something else.
Yeah, right. You're like, ah, crap. This is not working. Yeah, so like it was fine then, but like I think in the long term that my prediction of Priest pretty much came to fruition. I just felt like it was going to be the weakest class.
Yeah, and the deck is reactive. Like, all right, you want to mind control a Cthulhu or Yogg-Saron. It's already done the damage. Yeah, sure, you could have a 15-15 Cthulhu. It's already done 15 damage. And you have to wait a turn before you can play it.
Yep, like mind control it. Sweet, whatever, you can have it. I'm gonna kill you with this Korkron now. Or whatever I have left after my Cthulhu.
I don't know. It really is. It's become the deck where you get value by stealing things.
And all right. Well, I actually had one more topic to talk about for the show, Mike.
Okay.
And I think this is a good time to talk about it. So mind control was one of the cards that got nerfed, right? So like if you're gonna mind control the Cthulhu, at 10 mana, like that's not as good as it was when it was at 8 mana. Now, obviously, 8 mana is much, much more powerful, and I didn't play during that time frame. So the question I have to you, and I'm curious, is of all the banned cards that are still in standard, or not banned, I'm sorry, the nerfed cards that are still in standard, which of those do you think, now that the meta has been defined and it's changed, could have been actually not changed and could have gone retroactively back to its old spot and would make either the format more dynamic or shift a little bit but not break the format? So let me talk about breaking the format really quickly. I think of cards like Force of Nature, Savage Roar is falling into that combination of where it could break the format because that combination was too strong. Because it was good on their own. Like Savage Roar was okay on its own, and Force of Nature was fantastic on its own, right? It was still just very good to be able to burst for 6 and also have the potential to like trade the board against Zoo. So they both had utility, but in conjunction, they were incredibly powerful. So that combination was one that I would say falls under like the camp of we should not change that back at all. Mm-hmm. But then there's others that I think fall into the camp of like cards that we could consider changing back because maybe when the design team initially designed the new set and they're like, okay, we're going to create standard, and they were play testing standard, they were like, we've noticed that this card is too powerful. Let's cut it, But their meta was like in-house, right? It was only played in the design team, so it's like it's a small population of people that are doing that, and so they may have not just found all the decks in the format necessarily, or maybe they felt like one deck was better than the other and it ended up not being actually better because they didn't have like the best results based on the builds that people were building or something, and these slight changes actually hedged the Dragon Warrior deck to be better than this crazy other deck that they thought was the best deck. And so like then it shifts like the things that would need to be nerfed or unnerfed. So like, are there any cards that you feel like could be unnerfed?
Man,
there's a lot of them too. That's the craziest thing because they've done a lot of nerfs over time to some of these classic cards and basic cards.
I definitely don't think changing Gadgetzan Auctioneer back would be a good thing. Because
I think that falls under that camp as well.
I liked it. I would have liked to see Gadgetzan Auctioneer stay where it was after. No, because of spare parts. When we that's what I. I'll derail this just for a second. It's still on topic, and I've said this before. I hate that because we get answers to these issues, to issue cards like Gadgetzan Auctioneer when it was a 5 mana card. And we got Bomb Lobber and several different ways to answer this card, and it's like, okay, spare parts, that is still why we did it, because nothing's gonna be worse than doing that and then a rogue with spare parts. The rogue deck just gets crazy then. But we had answered this card, so minus spare parts, we had an answer to that card. Maybe that's what spare parts, maybe that threw it over the edge. But especially now, no, that card is right where it needs to be now. I have no doubts in my opinion, but
I think that's a good safe spot for it. I mean, Miracle Rogue is still a very powerful deck.
Yes.
It just doesn't fit like this meta anymore because there's more aggressive decks. It's a kind of deck I like to play in a tournament setting a lot because you can manipulate what you're playing against based on bans or based on the format.
Okay.
When it comes to and like how you pick decks based on that format. And so that kind of deck is really strong there.
Molten Giant. I want to see that card come back down in cost.
Sure, I could see that. I don't think it would break the format.
No, I don't know. I was happy with where the card was. I mean, okay, so if you bring that card back, nobody was playing like Zul or Handlock at the time anyway. Was it Mage? That's what they were worried about, wouldn't it? I'm trying to remember now. Why did they nerf it?
Why at Molten?
Yeah,
because Handlock, I would assume.
But nobody was
That's
playing
the only deck
Handlock.
that plays it. There's Handlock and Reno Lock. It would basically give Reno Lock a Molten Giant back.
And that's it.
And that actually doesn't seem terrible because Reno hasn't been the best deck guaranteed.
No.
Like there's multiple variants on Reno and it's been good. Frozen got rank 1 legend last season with it. Like at the end of the season, like playing a Reno Lock deck. Like sure, that's gonna happen. People are gonna do well with that deck. But it's still, I don't think, the end-all, be-all best deck. Maybe Molten Giant is the card that could have not been nerfed and may have made the format a little more dynamic.
That'd be my card, I think. I mean, I'm looking through right now, but that's one card I didn't understand the nerf. Yeah, I truly didn't. I didn't think the card was broken at all. Even in Handlock, I don't think it was broken.
No, it wasn't really broken. And the thing is that Handlock doesn't have Antique Healbot anymore. So if we were to see like a Handlock variant, it would be not amazing, but it does. The thing is like we have to think about new cards that are coming in that maybe the reason they nerfed it. Like I think of like Faceless Shambler, the one that's like it's a 4-mana 1/1 taunt that says Battle Cry, copy of friendly minions, attack and health. And then I also think of like Silence also being sort of nerfed as well. Yeah. And that might make it to the point where it's just too powerful. but like because those two things came into the format or like changed in the format, maybe that's the reasoning. I'm trying to think about what the reasoning is, and if that reasoning is enough to make it really stick in my head and say yes, we had to get rid of this card or something. But it doesn't even.
That's a good discussion. Let's talk about Ironbeak Owl.
Sure.
Looking at today's meta, not back when it was nerfed. Why was it nerfed? What would this be breaking if it was 2 mana?
It made Zoo too strong because Zoo was able to. It made it more of an aggro control deck because Zoo was able to use the silence effect. Like this is why they're still playing Crazed Alchemist on the regular. It's because a Crazed Alchemist is a 2/2 for 2 that says deal 3 damage on a lot of circumstances. Because Zoo doesn't care about the power of its minions. If the minion lives, it just wants to use every single minion to make effective trades and develop more minions. And so if Ironbeak Owl's a 2/1 and you can just go silence and ignore is their one big taunt. Yeah. Like let's say they play a Sinjin Shield Master. Yeah. And you're like, I drew an Ironbeak Owl. Let's just silence it and hit you for 15. Like I think it just makes Zoo too strong there.
Okay.
So I think nerfing that was the correct choice.
I can see that.
And then they also did Keeper of the Grove as well. So like silence effects got a huge reduction in usage.
They did, and
I think that's for the better though.
Do you feel like
because people want to play their cards and they want their cards to do what they say they're going to do? Like this is not not talking about it from like how good it is anymore. It's like what makes people feel good. It's playing your cards and having them do what they do, right? You want to play Sinjin Shieldmaster because you have a taunter and you wanted to play that in your deck. You put Ancient of War in your deck because you're like, I'd like to have a big taunt, and if Ironbeak Owl just says instead you've just got this big overcosted 5/5 if you're playing that one, or like Sinjin Shieldmaster, it's like, okay, you just get a 3/5 and I'm gonna ignore what you're doing. And so like I think it doesn't promote interactivity in the game. It's kind of like, well, it does to some extent, but it's like it's a downside for one player because one player wants to play their cards because they put them in their deck to play the cards. You put it in your deck because you're like, cool, this card's awesome. I like this card. Like everyone likes Taz Dingo or whatever. And so like being able to do that's kind of cool. Or like Defender of Argus, I think of people like the card Defender of Argus, and the reason they like it is A, it's powerful, and B, when it happens, like even if one side gets silenced, you still have your second taunt, so you still get to do what you wanted to do with it most of the time. Right. And so like that's strong. That's being able. That's a fun card. That's that's great. Yeah. I think that the only card that like really I feel like that if we reduce Ironbeak Owl back down and said you can only silence Twilight Drakes or something, and it was like a 2/3 like a normal dude that says silence target Twilight Drake, that'd be a better card. Or like Twilight Drake or one other card like silence targets. I'm trying to think of another good silence effect that's not like broken. It was just too strong, I think. Silence target Sylvanas or Twilight Drake or something. Like just only those two or something. Right. That would be kind of cool because then you can like limit what it can target. Yeah. I think that's a safer way rather than just straight up silence. Like I think silence as just like a blanket statement is too strong for that card potentially. Yeah. And that card's a beast. Yeah. But it's actual creature type, not like it's not like dude that's a beast.
It's a beast mode card.
That one feels like one that I wouldn't want to change. What other ones did they nerf? I'm trying to go through all the commons and not the neutral cards because those are the ones that I feel like were
Leper Gnome
are the most used for sure. Leper Gnome, I think that was a good nerf.
You do, okay.
Yeah, like immediately I do. A card restricted aggro decks, just like Yogg-Saron restricts spell decks. Mm-hmm. It's almost a must play because in the late game, it does 2 damage. In the early game, it does 2 damage and then does 2 more damage. It's just as good as a 2/1 than most other 1-drops.
I know how you feel about Knife Juggler, and I think we both agree on that nerf.
Oh yeah, Knife Juggler didn't really get nerfed. It got nerfed to the point where it's not played in every single deck, which is good, like in this meta at least. But I think it's still just not a good design of a card for the format. I'm not a proponent for that card.
Should Novice Novice Engineer 1/1 for 2 draw a card. It was a 1/2 for 2 draw a card.
I think you actually told me that a while ago. I didn't know that until you told me that.
Would that card be played again if it was a 1/2?
So what made it? Was it played like where was it played?
I was played a lot. That vanilla, novice engineer, and Azure Drake were like everyone had it. Everyone had it because it was like, oh, 2-drop and a draw card. Yeah, oh yeah, go. Because like you said, best card in the game has draw card.
Yeah.
But when
charge and draw a card.
When it became a 1/1, like I guess the thing is you could trade it and potentially get a 2-for-1, and it didn't die to a hero power like a mage hero power or a rogue, or you could clear paladin dudes with it. So it had utility it had utility outside of just the body, or I'm sorry, other than
it doesn't just
the draw
die
card,
to like rogues hero power, right. or mages, like, or
any sort of 1 mana board clear or anything.
Yeah, whirlwind effects.
Yeah, you could clear a Neutron shield, and then go from there. Now the nerf that you could have, the nerf happened before Neutron was a card, but that would have been something that could have been done. It gave you the ability to trade for.
I don't know if it would change anything, but I feel like I don't know enough about the card, like when it was pre-nerf, to say. What do you think?
In today's meta, I don't think it would matter.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I feel like Dragon Warrior would just
it doesn't matter. Like we're not as Hunter, like aggro or face hunter would have been a great card against that. Not now, but I don't know. I just feel like we still have aggro decks, but they're beefier. They have a little more butt to them. I don't know.
Novice Engineer as a 1/2 probably wouldn't fit in the aggro decks though, right? It's more like a mid-range or control style deck would run it, or even combo.
No, if I remember correctly, everyone ran it because it was it was a 2-drop and it drew you the card, so it moves you through your deck quicker. Obviously aggro decks loved it.
Really, aggro decks were playing it though?
Yeah.
But do you think in this day and age it would be the kind of card that an aggro deck would guarantee to play?
No.
Like I could see Zoom maybe playing it because as like a one of, but like they have Dark Peddler instead.
Okay.
Which is similar in nature.
Yeah.
But not like exactly the same.
Now we can no longer Hobgoblin was Goblins versus Gnome, wasn't it?
Yeah, no Hobgoblins in the format.
That would have been a great Hobgoblin card.
No Hobgoblin, sadly.
Rip.
That would have been a cool card. Let's put that in core cards.
Yeah.
That card was cool.
Yeah, because it wasn't summoned cards; it was played cards. So it's not going to make your paladins any better. It's not going to make your warlocks any better. It's strictly play the 1/1 or 1 attack and buff it.
For sure.
I don't know. It would have been a nice with Sir Finley Murgleton. So maybe aggro decks would have been better with if Hobgoblin was a regular card.
Let's talk about the most, the most contested, debated card when the most recent nerf happened. Blade Flurry. That seemed to be the one that had most people up in roars and were kind of like confused by the nerf, because a Blade Flurry used to be 2 mana, correct? And it said destroy your weapon and deal its damage to all enemy minions and your opponent.
I'm pretty sure it was 2 mana.
Yeah, so it was really, really efficiently costed. It was very powerful. And if it was still 2 mana, do you okay, let's say it went back to its original state. Do you think Blade Flurry would be too powerful?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
But was it too much? Was 4 mana too much?
Okay. So or is this the one that maybe we actually just make changes to the card where it's like we put it at 3 mana or we put it at some other cost or some other change to the text of it?
Yeah, maybe 3 mana.
I do think that removing its face damage was a good choice.
That was a very good choice. Yes. It got ridiculous when it was face and minion.
Yeah. Especially like in Miracle Rogue. Like Miracle Rogue would auto play Deadly Poison if it had do face damage as well. Because then it's just like Deadly Poison attack, Blade Flurry, clear your board, you've taken 6 damage, go. And then the next turn they're like, Leroy Jenkins, cold blood, take 14, you're dead. You know, and so like it's impossible to gain back position on the board with that. It was a little bit oppressive in its ability to like put you in bad situations where you can't play around potential cards in their deck, or you have to make decisions that are not necessarily based on any sort of like merit to like how many copies of a card they have left in their deck, or like what you think is correct based on a situation. Sometimes you're just like, well, I'm probably dead if they have it. You know, it's just like, I guess we keep playing the game and we're probably dead because they have it, you know?
Yeah.
So I do like that it doesn't do face damage.
Yeah, I don't.
But the cost, maybe? That's the only thing I can think of. But I feel like that was a safe. Like, I've fallen on the fence of saying that, like, I think the nerf was good, just like you do, kind of. But like, I don't think that. I think there maybe is an area to retool the card potentially.
I mean, I think it got punished a little too much because it's not really played anymore.
Yeah, I was playing one of them in a like a Milrogue list, a Miliog list that I've been messing around with as well.
Yeah,
because I like playing Milrogue, and it's fine in Milrogue. But the downside to the card is now at 4 mana when you cast Preparation. Like, let's say you cast like Preparation Sprint or something.
Yeah.
The real power to the card was sometimes you can go Preparation Sprint and then draw into your second Preparation and a Blade Flurry. And you can go prep Blade Flurry, and that really like that helps you during those sprint turns. Or maybe you just have 7 mana and you have the Preparation or the Blade Flurry in hand. And you're like, I have to cast Sprint this turn because I can't win if I don't reload my hand. Mm-hmm. But I need to also be able to clear the board, and I have this 3/1 weapon up, so I want to be able to go sprint and do that. And I think that 1 extra mana and making it a turn later is enough that it makes it a little too slow, I think. But I don't know. Maybe 3 is too powerful still at 3 mana, because at that point you can Preparation Sprint for nothing.
Yeah,
I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah,
that one's an interesting one for sure to look at. Any other cards you can think of that would be from the nerf camp that you feel like could have changed? I mean, I think I agree with you 100%. I think it's Molten Giant from this last set of nerfs.
That's really all I can think of. Honestly,
me either. There's nothing. I think they did a really good job with most of the nerfs in this last set of nerfs.
Yeah.
I think that was a pretty safe choice for where the meta ended up shaping up to being. And I think they it seems like they designed it relatively well to force this, maybe not force this meta, but suggest this meta to most players, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. If there's one card that I'm just looking through, Elemental Destruction. Shaman spell, 3 mana, deal 4 to 5 damage to all minions, overload of 5. If there's a card that wasn't classic that I could say, can we please change that, retool that? I think that would be one.
As a classic card?
I don't know about classic, but just in general. I hate that card. It is so
really?
It is so expensive and it does damage to everyone. I don't like it.
Oh, you think it should be one-sided?
Yes.
Like in favor of you.
Yes,
interesting.
I do. That's a lot of overload. A lot of overload.
I think Shaman's a little too powerful to have that effect right now.
Right now,
maybe
yes.
Yes.
I think so.
Right now, yes.
I think
maybe in like the future, if they reprint into new sets and we get rid of some of like the other, and we go back to like how Shaman was last year.
Yeah.
That'd be great if it was tooled that way.
Last year, this card would have been great. Now, not so much, but
yeah, it's just too strong at that point. I think every aggro Shaman deck would play it then.
Yeah.
I would play it.
And maybe that's why they did it. I mean, what is it? I think I read that their development's 2 or 3 sets ahead, or at least they're beginning looking at stuff.
That's good.
When a set is released, they have 2 or 3 down the pipeline that they're working on, or something like that.
That's good.
I believe that's what I heard.
Good to hear that they're that far ahead.
Yeah,
because
it could be incorrect, but I believe that.
I mean, that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
You got to be thinking that far ahead at least. Like, I would have. I think if it were up to if in a perfect world, in my opinion, they'd be 5 years ahead, and they'd be and that'd be on a 5-year plan. Because I mean, it's not too unreasonable to think that far ahead in this type of game. Because at this point, this game is a commercial success. It's going to stay around. It's going to be successful. Mm-hmm. They've created the backbone to it through the client, and the client's getting better. As with the last release 2 days ago, it's going to continue to get better. I just think that the client's not going to get worse, and I think that this game stays around for the long term, and that's why I think it's safe for them to start making 5-year choices for the game.
Yeah,
which would be great. I think that'd be fantastic for them to be able to think that far ahead, have a design team that can plan that far ahead, and just really be tackling some really big projects for the game, because I think this game has a lot of potential to be a fantastic game. Not just a great game, but a fantastic game in the end.
Right.
Make 2018, get rid of Yogg. Make
Hearthstone great
make
again.
Hearthstone great again.
All right. Well, anything else before we move
Nothing
forward?
else for me, man.
For these people playing at home, hit all 3. Everyone's getting toasted right now. Anything else? Nothing.
No, nothing else for me this week. It's again, we're getting to that point where the meta is really defined, and it's just fun to talk about some of these other like issues in the game, concerns in the game, different just theories that we can discuss in the game, and just like help out some of the players that now are getting into the game and have kind of gotten their bearings from this last set and are able to start moving into like understanding the game on maybe a level up and move to a level that's a little bit higher than where they were at before.
Would you say moving forward to a new level?
Moving forward to a new level.
Yeah.
That's right.
Nice.
That was a cool episode.
Yes. All right. Well, this has been episode 73 of the Death Rattle Crew. Don't forget, you can find us at www.deathrattlecrew.com. On your podcast catcher of choice, just search Death Rattle Crew. On YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, just search Death Rattle Crew. Bradford Lee, where can people find you?
As always, twitch.tv/Bradford Lee.
And are you back on a normal schedule?
I am back on a normal schedule,
okay.
so I will be streaming regularly. I'll be broadcasting daily, I guess is what I should say.
Nice.
That one's for you, Rusty.
And don't forget, just like Stark won a gift card this month, all you got to do is follow us or write into us, and you get entries to win free stuff. It's free. It's easy to do. Just do it.
And if you write in, you get 5 entries,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Rather than just 1.
Which 5 is much better than 1. If you play Hearthstone, you probably get at math. I hope.
I hear 1 drops are better than 5 drops, though, sometimes. Who's to say this math actually works out?
That is true. Very true. Very true. All right. So, from the rest of the Death Rattle Crew, I'm Tech2. That's Bradford Lee. And we will see you next week.
Australia.
Australia.